Hello and welcome to my humble kitchen. I'm Chef Amy Symington. I'm a nutrition professor, chef, and researcher at George Brown College. I'm so thrilled to be with you here today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the types of foods that we want to stock our kitchen with. We want to ensure that we're setting ourselves up for success in terms of a healthy lifestyle, and that starts with what you stock your kitchen with. So, tell you a little bit about the types of items, food items, dry items, that you need to keep on hand to do that, and then I'll demo a few recipes that kind of practically apply that nutrition information that I just provided you. Okay, cool. So let's get started. What to stock your kitchen with, 101. So first and foremost, we'll start with whole plant-based foods as much as possible. So we're talking fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes, whole grains, and good quality protein. If you focus on those foods, you can do no wrong. So specifically dried legumes, canned legumes, nuts and seeds, nut and seed butters are really great to have on hand. When we're storing them, just make sure you're storing them in a cool and dry place. When you're wanting to prepare legumes in particular, it's a great idea to soak them 1 to 2 days ahead of time, changing the water out in the evenings if you do soak them for 2 days. And then I oftentimes will soak them with a little bit of baking soda and or a little bit of seaweed, and that can actually help to minimize the gas that sometimes people find that they have after they've consumed beans. So yeah, while you're cooking it too, you can also add a little bit of baking soda and or just a little bit of seaweed as well, and that helps to alleviate some of the gas. I also like to pair it with an acid too, so if you're making a big pot of chili, for example, if you do a big squirt of lime juice at the very end, that also helps with digesting beans. It also helps with the absorption of the iron that's present in the beans. So the vitamin C from the citrus then helps with the bioavailability of the iron that's present in the beans. Yeah, so making sure that you're storing those properly. And then I also recommend having lots of herbs and spices on hand. So herbs and spices are a great way to kind of add an oomph of flavor to any sort of meal without added and unnecessary sugar, salt, and unhealthy fats. So things like cumin, coriander, paprika, cinnamon, turmeric, maybe a garam masala, something that's got a lot of flavor and oomph to it. We want to avoid things like garlic salt or onion salt because those obviously contain salt. They do contain flavor as well, but you can actually just use a garlic powder or fresh garlic and onion powder instead of that as well. Okay, so I like to keep mine kind of on hand in little tiny jars here, just right beside the stove, not over top of the stove, because sometimes I find that the heat goes up into the spices and then they get a little bit clumpy. So keeping them kind of in a dry place, close-ish to your stove, but not right above your stove. Okay, so yeah, herbs and spices for sure. Whole grains, and you want to get a wide variety of different whole grains. And why whole grains? Because they help to keep our blood sugar levels even. If we're focusing on simple carbohydrates, white flour, white pasta, white sugar, those tend to spike our blood sugar levels and they'll drop really fast, leaving us kind of hungry, hangry, if you will. Some people find hungry and angry at the same time. And it's not good for mood stability. It's also not good for making sure that we're maintaining a healthy overall weight. So we want to focus on the whole complex carbohydrates as much as possible. And those include things like whole rolled oats. So you want to make sure that you're getting the whole rolled oats as opposed to the quick oats. The quick oats and other refined grains have had the bran removed, and the bran is where all those goodies are. It's where all the B vitamins are, the antioxidants, the fiber, the things that keep our blood sugar levels like this as opposed to like this. Okay, so whole grains, things like quinoa, buckwheat, brown rice, whatever you're into, include those as much as you possibly can in your diet and choose those all the time. Okay. Fresh or frozen fruit and veg. Right now it is fall here, so things like corn and peppers and squash, those are great things to have on hand. And I always say when we're talking about vegetables in particular to focus on leafy greens, orange vegetables, cruciferous vegetables, and red vegetables. So cruciferous, if you're not familiar with that term, includes cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, all the really stinky vegetables. Those are good to get into. So making sure you have lots of those on hand. And then of course, fruits. So things like apples, peaches, pears, bananas, whatever you like. And I tend to recommend consuming fruit over fruit juice, as will your dietitian, because the fruit actually has fiber. And so the fiber again is going to help us keep our blood sugar levels even and we're not getting those spikes and drops. It's always good too to pair your fruits with a protein-rich food as well. So for example, if you're having a banana, maybe have it on toast with a little bit of nutty butter or seed butter, and that will help to keep your blood sugar levels even Steven, as they say. Okay, and then good quality protein. So good quality protein can mean many things to different people. So when we're talking about Canada's food guide, they recommend mostly focusing on plant-based protein as much as possible. So things like nuts and seeds, legumes, whole grains that are complete protein, so things like quinoa, buckwheat, hemp seeds, chia seeds, these are both complete proteins as well. Tofu, edamame, tempeh, these are good sources of plant-based protein. Okay, yeah, and there you have it. So just focusing on whole plant-based foods as much as possible. One question that I do often get that I want to address is, what's the difference between fresh versus frozen? Is fresh always better? And that is definitely not the case. Whatever you can get your hands, do it. Whatever is accessible to you, do it. I always tell the story about the strawberry truck. So if there's, say, strawberries that are grown in California and they're flash frozen and then shipped all the way north to, say, Canada, they would contain more vitamin C than strawberries that were picked and then shipped on the strawberry truck all the way up to Canada. And that's because over time vitamin C dissipates. So that's just one example of, why it's okay to consume those frozen vegetables, because oftentimes they're frozen when they're at their prime, and most of the time those vitamins and minerals are kept. And so so whatever you can get your hands on. So today we're working with corn. If it's corn season, great, use fresh corn. If it's not, then you're more than welcome to use frozen. Just make sure that there's no added salt or sugar to your vegetables. So canned is great, but just make sure that there's no added simple syrups or added unnecessary salt. So for example, with canned tomatoes, you want to make sure that there's no sodium or very low sodium. Okay, all right, well, let's get cooking. I have 3 items on the menu for you today. We have a smoothie. So a smoothie is always great for breakfast or a snack. You want to make sure that there's high levels of protein in that smoothie, again, to help with keeping our blood sugar levels even. So today I'm going to be making a matcha mint chocolate chip shake, and we're going to be adding lots and lots of leafy greens in there. So we'll get started on that first, and then we'll move to a couple other recipes. Okay, over here. So in terms of ingredients, I should mention too, all of the recipes that I'm creating today come from the Long Table Cookbook, Plant-Based Recipes for Optimal Health, which is by yours truly, and focuses on foods that are high in fiber, high in antioxidants, and are good for helping to prevent chronic disease and manage chronic disease if you happen to have chronic disease. Okay, we focus, as I said, mostly on whole plant-based foods as much as possible because those have the most amount of fiber, antioxidants, and they themselves are functional foods, meaning they contain lots of vitamins and minerals, but they also contain health benefits as well. So an example I use for that would be something like tomatoes. Tomatoes are very rich in a thing called lycopene. Lycopene has been shown to potentially reduce the risk of prostate cancer. So that's a functional food. It provides you with things like vitamin A, but also lycopene. Okay, so plant-based foods, lots of those in there. So we'll get those into us as much as possible. But of course, we want to make sure that everything we eat is tasty, flavorful, as well as good for us. Okay, so on to the matcha mint smoothie. So I've got some frozen banana here. We're going to toss that in. So that was about 2 large frozen bananas. Bananas contain a thing called inulin fiber, which can help with beneficial bacteria in our gut. It can act as a prebiotic, which helps with the growth of the already existing probiotics in our bowels, and that can help with vitamin and mineral absorption. That can help with good gut motility, making you go a little easier, and it can also help potentially to increase our immune system as well. And so we want to get as many prebiotics as well as probiotics into our system. Okay, so bananas in there, inulin fiber, check. And I'm adding, this is an unsweetened soy, and you can use whatever milk you prefer. I always recommend that it is unsweetened, okay? So no added sugar, and you'll see that on the front of whatever milk you choose. Soy milk, complete protein, also helps with reducing LDL cholesterol in our blood, and so it also has been shown to potentially help with reducing the risk of heart disease. So soy milk in there. Spinach. I always say spinach is the least offensive of the leafy greens. It doesn't have as bitter of a taste, so it's really good in green smoothies. So I'm going to toss that in. I always throw in usually spinach because it has not a potent flavor to my smoothies, and it adds all sorts of fiber and vitamins and minerals. Leafy greens are things you want to get into as much as possible. Okay, and then mint, of course, in the name, matcha mint chocolate chip shake. So we'll add the mint in there. I like adding fresh herbs into my smoothies because it adds an oomph of flavor, and they're also leafy greens. So you're adding lots of flavor without any, again, unnecessary added sugar, salt, and unhealthy fats. Okay, check. Got those two things in there. Next, I'm going to be adding some cacao nibs. So these are easily found in your health food store. This is another good thing to stock your pantry with, things like this. For baking purposes, they're really rich in antioxidants, polyphenols in particular, and it adds, again, a nice oomph of flavor, but also a little bit of texture to give you that kind of chocolate chip kind of texture in your mouth. If you don't have them or you can't find them, you could just substitute some regular cocoa powder. So far I've put 2 bananas in here, about 1.5 cups of soy milk, a big handful of spinach, a big handful of mint, probably about 1/4 cup of mint, and then this is about 2 tablespoons of cacao nibs. So if you don't have that, any regular cocoa powder will do. Then I'm going to be adding a little bit of matcha powder. So it's just green tea ground up, and it's rich in antioxidants as well. So we'll throw that in there. If you're not into matcha or you can't find it or it's not accessible to you, just omit it. You don't have to put it in. Okay, great. And then depending upon how sweet your bananas are, if they're maybe a little more on the green side, you could add a little bit of maple syrup to it, but you don't have to. You can omit it as well. If the bananas are very ripe, then definitely omit it. Okay. And then also a little bit of vanilla. Vanilla makes it taste like a milkshake, so I'd like to add that in. Again, if it's not accessible to you, you can omit it. That's not a mandatory ingredient. Okay, so we take this and we're gonna zhuzh it up a little bit over here. And these are great to make on Sunday night, and you can have it for Monday, Tuesday. Just kind of something you can throw in the fridge and then just grab and go in the morning. It's always good to have snacks on hand, particularly when you're out, particularly when you have appointments or if you're going to work. It's a great idea to have snacks on hand as much as possible, keeping those blood sugar levels even. And you really want to make sure that spinach is mixed up in there, because there's nothing worse than getting a big hunk of spinach in your green smoothie. Okay. And it's good. It's good. It's all mixed up. Perfect. Okay, great. So first recipe down, check. I always like to garnish with a little mint sprig. You can throw a couple of cacao nibs on top. There you have it. The matcha mint chocolate shake. Check, done. Share it with a friend. You can also use in your smoothies whatever frozen fruit you have on hand, or if you don't have frozen fruit, you just have fresh and you want it to be frozen, you just chop it up, toss it in the freezer, and then use it the next day. Sometimes it's nice to have smoothie bags ready, so I like to oftentimes put things like hemp seeds or chia seeds or nut butter in my smoothies as well. Here we use soy milk for our source of protein, but adding those additional sources of protein, again, keep our blood sugar levels even. Omega-3 fatty acids are found, or healthy fats are found in hemp seeds in particular, and so they're always a good addition. And again, you can't taste them, so that's a nice addition. And again, you're getting a complete protein and then keeping your blood sugar levels even. Okay, make sure to share that with a friend. So yeah, hemp seeds in particular are great things to have on hand. Hemp seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, sesame seeds. Those are great things to stock your pantry with. Okay, one recipe done. Check. Next recipe. This is also from the Long Table Cookbook, one of my favorites. We make it all the time for my family. We eat it regularly, and it is just a basic pecan granola. And so what I'm doing here is I'm using whole rolled oats. Okay, whole rolled oats, again, they have the bran intact. We're adding a little bit of grapeseed oil. I like to use grapeseed oil or canola oil, oils that have high smoke points, because you don't want your oil to start to smoke or burn, because then it becomes carcinogenic, and obviously that's not something we want to be consuming. So in terms of cooking oil, I generally use grapeseed oil, canola oil, I'll use coconut oil once in a while, sesame oil is another good one, peanut oil is another good high smoke one. Things like olive oil, I generally use those in salad dressings because they have a lower smoke point. If you are cooking at a lower heat, then olive oil would be fine, or extra virgin olive oil would be fine. But I like to stick to the grapeseed oil and the canola oils because they have the higher smoke point. I like grapeseed oil because it also has a neutral flavor. Okay, so whole rolled oats, first ingredient in granola. And you can put whatever you want in your granola, whatever you like. So I've got grapeseed oil, then we're going to put a little bit of hemp seeds. So again, protein. So I've got about 2 cups of rolled oats in here and about 1/3 of a cup of hemp seeds there. Then I'm going to add some pumpkin seeds. Yum. As I said, it is fall right now, so I'm adding the pumpkin seeds. Great addition to a fall breakfast. And then a little bit of cinnamon. So maybe about 1/2 teaspoon. Mix that up, mix that up. A little bit of maple syrup for sweetener. About maybe 2 teaspoons. Mix that up. And then I'm using some dried dates. So dried fruit is another great thing to keep in your pantry. I like to use maple syrup and dates as my added sugar. Dates in particular contain high levels of fiber. They also contain high levels of vitamins and minerals. So it's a good addition, and it's also kind of like a nice sweet treat. So we add those in, mix, mix, mix. Okay. And then I've got some pecans. So nuts in particular, I really love having nuts on hand all the time. And I do keep my nuts in the freezer because over time they can become rancid because they are a good source of healthy fat and vitamin E. And so I like to keep them as fresh as possible. I generally buy them in bulk too, so I'll keep them in the freezer. Same with my seeds as well. So my nuts and seeds, I generally keep those in the freezer. Pecans, walnuts, cashews, hemp seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, all of those things I like to keep in the freezer. I should also mention too, if you're using things like flax and chia, it's a good idea to grind them so that you're able to access those healthy fats, those omega-3 fatty acids. Otherwise, they generally just go right through you without any benefit. Okay, so make sure that those are ground. And you can purchase them already ground, or you can just use your coffee grinder, whatever's easiest for you. Okay, I'm gonna chop up some of these guys. And I've preheated my oven to 375. Always make sure when you're cutting that your fingers are not in the way, first and foremost, but I always do the tip to heel method. This is just a rough chop. This is what we like to refer to in the biz as a rough chop. Okay, and then we'll add that in. Lots of nuts. This is great. This is good for kids as well. Granola is a great breakfast. As I said before, it's also a great snack too. So if you're pre-making kind of like little parfaits the night before, all you need to do is make the parfaits, and I usually use a mason jar. So here I've got some yogurt, and what I'll do is I'll dice up some fruit, and then we'll top it with the granola, and then you can put a lid on it and throw it in your bag. And then there's an easy breakfast on the go, or a snack later on in the afternoon. Again, you gotta be prepared. Okay, great. Doesn't that look beautiful? There we go. And again, you can just add whatever you like. If you are allergic to nuts, don't do nuts. You could also do seeds, so sunflower seeds would be a great addition here as well. Okay, and so grab my baking sheet. So baking sheet lined with parchment paper or a silicone mat if you have one of those. I like the silicone mats because they're less waste. Get in there, and then we want to make sure that it's spread out so that it toasts evenly. And what I'll do is I'll pop this in the oven for 18 to 20 minutes, and probably halfway through I'll kind of turn it around so that everything gets evenly toasted. You can also take it out, check it out, and stir it around a bit. Okay, so into the oven it goes. Yum. So while that is toasting, we are going to move on to the next recipe. Okay, so we're going to be making one of my all-time favorite soups for fall. It is a creamy corn chowder. So this is a great recipe to utilize some of those pantry ingredients that you have on hand, as well as maybe some frozen corn or fresh corn, depending on what season you're in. Okay, so again, this recipe is in the Long Table Cookbook, Plant-Based Recipes for Optimal Health, so check that out. It's paired with a tempeh chorizo. Today we're leaving it out. That would be the source of protein. So instead of doing that, I'm going to be adding some pinto beans. Okay, so pinto beans or black beans would go really nice in this as well. Really yummy. It's one of my favorite. I usually make it at least 3 or 4 times a season. Okay, so get the burner going here. These guys aside. All right, and we're gonna get to doing some chopping. So, firstly, onions. Okay, so onions are a good source of prebiotics. So again, help with the growth of the already existing probiotics that exist in our gastrointestinal system. And so you want to get as many of these prebiotics into as possible. This also adds nice flavor as well. Garlic, spices, herbs, those are good ways to get extra flavor without added fat, salt, or sugar. Okay, and so in terms of cutting, you see that I kind of cut the tip off but left the root intact. Okay, and I have 2 halves. And I always save my onion skins. First, I always wash my fruits and vegetables. Make sure that you really wash them thoroughly just to get anything off the exterior. You want to make sure everything's clean. Food safety is very important. Of course, before you even wash your fruits and vegetables, washing your hands is very important as well. And not just to kind of rinse under the water. You want to make sure you get your hands wet first. Get a good lather with soap. And then what I do with my son is we usually sing the ABCs twice. And then after we're done that, turn the taps off, dry your hands with a paper towel or clean cloth. Fruits and vegetables, you don't necessarily need to go to that same extent, but making sure that everything has been thoroughly washed and giving it a good rub ahead of time. Sometimes people like to put them in a baking soda solution where you fill up your sink, add some baking soda, throw them in, let them sit for 20 to 30 minutes and then come back to them. You can do that, whatever you're comfortable with. You do not need to buy any sort of fancy detergents for your fruits and vegetables. Just make sure that you're giving them kind of a good rub and that they're thoroughly cleaned ahead of time. Okay, this onion is very potent, which is amazing. It's gonna add all sorts of flavor. I'm gonna make sure my pot is heating up here. Great. Okay, so now we've got 2 halves, right? And what we'll do is we slice without cutting through the root. Onions, garlic, these are also great things to have on hand. You want to make sure that they're stored in a cool, dark place, okay? And away from each other. Same with potatoes. You don't want to store them all together in one bag or box. You want to make sure that they're stored separately. Okay, and we'll show that again. Slicing, not all the way through. And then 2 horizontal cuts. And then tip to heel, making sure your hands are kind of in a pincer grasp. Because you don't want them like this, because then you may lose a finger or 2. And it's always accuracy before speed. So make sure that you're doing it accurately before you actually add the additional speed. I've been doing this for a little while. Okay, so that's good and heated. What we'll do now is I've got a little bit of grapeseed oil. Again, whatever you have on hand, just make sure that it has a high smoke point. Canola oil is a good one, and grapeseed oil. They're both kind of neutral flavors. Whew, these onions are great. Tricks in terms of making yourself not cry as often when you're cutting onions. Washing your knife with cold water is a good one to do. You could wear glasses. Oftentimes those people who have contact lenses don't get as teary-eyed. I don't mind actually. So I just know that it's going to be extremely flavorful. Okay, so we'll let that saute out of the way. And next up we're going to be adding garlic. Garlic is again a great flavor enhancer. It also contains allicin, which is a beneficial antioxidant. It also tastes amazing. So get it into you. It also has been shown to potentially be good for reducing the risk of heart disease as well. Okay, so what you saw me do there was I cut the top off the garlic. And then I kind of gave it a good squish. so that I could peel the skins off a lot easier. And again, make sure you're saving all of these things. I have made an amazing stock out of previously made soups, just using the scraps of things like carrots, celery, garlic. You don't want to use leafy greens, those are really bitter, but you can use pretty much anything else. As long as it's not rotten. You don't want to put rotten things in your stock bin because obviously you don't want to be consuming that. So yeah, so again, onion skins, garlic skins, carrots, ends, just making sure that they're clean. Toss them into a bag, and I always toss them into the freezer for when I am actually making a soup. And then what you do is you take it out of the freezer, put it into a pot, bring a pot of water to a boil, and then if you've already added it in, then you can add things like bay leaves, peppercorns, thyme sprigs, and that's generally how you make a good homemade stock. And it's pretty much free because you would have thrown those scraps out anyways, right? Okay, so I cut the end off the garlic. Now I'm just giving it a kind of smash. Make sure after you have cut garlic that you're cleaning your cutting board, because your cutting board will be very stinky. And you don't want to be cutting fruit necessarily after in the same spot, because then your fruit will taste like garlic. Same with onions too. It's always good to ensure that you are cleaning your areas as much as possible when you've moved on to the next recipe. Okay, so I've just added the garlic. I wish you could smell what's cooking right now because it is amazing. So I've got onions, garlic, that's always a great start. And then we can add some spices. So we've got some cumin here. We have some paprika, about 2 teaspoons each. A little bit of pepper. Okay, and then we're going to add, make sure it's kind of on a low to medium heat. Okay, next we're going to add some carrots. So carrots rich in vitamin A, good for your eyes, good for your skin. Also high in fiber as well. Keep the ends, please and thank you. And I've got a nice yellow carrot here just to kind of give different colors. Carrots are good to have on hand. They last a long time in the fridge. Rich in vitamin A, as I said. Also rich in beta-carotene, which is the precursor to vitamin A. And beta-carotene is a powerful antioxidant, has been shown to be a good component of an anti-chronic disease diet. Okay. Put those guys in there. And you can see how I'm leaving the skins on. If they have been thoroughly washed, I leave the skins on my fruits and veggies because it's added fiber. Again, we want lots of fiber. Fiber helps with stabilizing our blood sugar levels, fills you up without filling you out as well. Okay. Great. And this is just kind of a rough chop or a rough dice. Like a mirepoix going on here, minus the celery, with the onions and garlic, and now carrots. Great, so we got our spices. And next up, I'm going to add a red pepper. The red pepper is actually not in the recipe, but I just happen to have one on hand, and it adds a beautiful color. And as I was mentioning, you want to make sure you're getting red vegetables in your diet, as well as the orange, the leafy greens, and the cruciferous. So those are good ones to stock your kitchen with. These I would not put into stock. The seeds are a little bit bitter, and so they don't make a nice stock. So I'm just dicing these guys. And the method I just did there, that if you caught it, was the rock and roll method, where I cut the top off and the bottom off, and then I cut down the side, and then I cut the insides out of the pepper, and that gets rid of the seeds, and it's a lot easier to dice afterwards. So red peppers are very rich in vitamin C. However, you do lose some of the vitamin C when you put them into a soup. Vitamin C dissipates with heat. Okay. Great. Put that in there. So next up, I'm going to add some diced tomatoes. Make making sure again that they are the unsalted variety. So these are canned. If you have fresh, great. It is tomato season right now. But yeah, don't feel obligated to use fresh. You can use canned, but again, diced, making sure that they are unsalted. Give that a stir. Okay, and next up, in the Long Table Cookbook, it calls for a white potato. I'm actually going to use a sweet potato. Sweet potatoes are an orange vegetable. They're also rich in beta carotene. Again, another good component of a healthy, balanced diet. And I'm going to cube them for you. Great. So nice. I wish you could smell the granola in the oven. It is baking beautifully. You can smell the cinnamon. In the cookbook, the granola is actually paired with a sweet potato puree, so that would be a nice addition as well. I'm trying to keep things very easy, accessible, and affordable here, so I've omitted that, but you're welcome to make it if you like. Great, and I've got about half sweet potato in there. Depending on how big your sweet potatoes are, I'm going to put the rest of it in. This is a great make-ahead recipe, so if you make it on a Sunday, it's good for dinner, it's good for lunch. It would be good over rice. It would be good after maybe some of the liquid has dissipated, maybe on a bun, kind of sloppy Joe style. Whole grain bun, of course. Great, and you'll notice again, I left the skins on. I like to leave the skins on as long as they've been washed. That's added fiber as well as nutrients. Cool. Okay, so next up, we'll add in our coconut milk. So I'm using coconut milk. You can use whatever milk you're comfortable with. So if you're looking for a lower fat variety, you could use unsweetened soy, you could use unsweetened almond milk. I like the creamy texture of the coconut milk. This is going to make about 6 to 8 servings, and I'm adding a 400 milliliter can. Adds a really nice texture. It's a good substitution for, say, heavy cream. Let me just tip it towards you so you can kind of see what's happening here. Amazing. All right. Get this going. Okay, next I'm going to be adding pinto beans. Again, you could add black beans, whatever beans you have on hand, or legumes. Chickpeas would be fine as well. Trying to keep it kind of a little bit more traditional in terms of the flavors we have going here. So I'm doing pinto beans. Black beans would also be great. High in fiber, good source of protein, and they're easy too. I mean, if you're in a pinch, canned is great. Just make sure you're using the canned that is no salt added or low sodium. Or if, again, you're cooking them from dry, making sure that you're soaking them a day or two in advance, changing out the water each evening, and then if beans sometimes give you a little bit of gas, it's a good idea to add just like a little pinch of baking soda, and or you could add a little bit of seaweed and take it out at the very end. That helps with reducing gas. If you don't eat beans and you've never eaten beans or legumes, it's good to start kind of slow and incrementally increase the amount that you're consuming. But you can use them in anything. You can use them in soups and stews and dips and burgers, in shepherd's pies, in desserts even. I have a really great black bean brownie recipe. There's also a chickpea blondie recipe in the cookbook that adds additional protein but also fiber, which is really important. Okay, great, so got those in there. Get this going. And then next, we'll add our corn. So get our spices out of the way and our scraps. Corn. So I have fresh corn. If you have frozen, that's great too. Whatever you happen to have on hand, use that. Okay, I want to make sure our station is clean. Just talking about a clean cutting board. Get that out of the way. So overall, this takes about 30 to 35 minutes to cook and prepare. And if you make a big batch of it, you can also freeze it and then have it on hand for those rainy days when you don't feel like cooking. Okay, so corn. So corn, I have a little technique I want to show you for cutting corn off the cob. Okay. Great. Okay. So you can grab a bowl or a pan, whatever you have on hand. I just have this small pan that's been working for me here. What you do is a serrated knife oftentimes works better, it's easier to manage. And what you do is you just put the corn in the middle of the bowl and you follow the cob. You want to make sure you get all of that corn. Corn contains lutein, which is another powerful antioxidant. It's also found in leafy greens too. As you may or may not know, all plant-based foods contain fiber and all plant-based foods contain no cholesterol. So I always say with fruits and vegetables in particular, you can just go to town on them. Get as many as you possibly can into you. I generally like to focus on the foods that we should be consuming, so the whole plant-based food as much as possible. So the fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes, whole grains, and good quality protein. Because when you focus on that, that tends to push out the things we shouldn't be consuming as much of. And then obviously focusing on really flavorful foods and flavor enhancing tools to make sure that our food is tasty. If it doesn't taste good, we're not going to eat it, right? So making sure that it's something that's appetizing to the eyes, but also your palate as well. Okay, and you can see all that's left is the cob there and very small amounts of corn left on the table. Instead of it falling everywhere and onto the floor, it stays in the pan. Okay, so I'm going to add that in. Great. Okay, I can smell that granola. It's baking so nicely. Great. Okay, while that's cooking there, I'm going to add the homemade stock that I made. Again, it was just scraps from other things, other stir-fry soups, things that I've made in the past. Okay, and that was about 3 cups. Great. Cool. And then last but not least, we're going to add lime. I like to add lime or citrus to my soups and stews because it adds, again, an oomph of flavor without added unhealthy fat, salt, or sugar. Keeping your citrus at room temperature before you're going to use it is a great idea to get the juices flowing. Then you want to just kind of give it a roll with your hand, put a little bit of weight over top of it. And then before I juice it, I always like to use the zest. So the zest is great for flavor boosting as well. So even if you're not going to use it in the zest in your soup or whatever it is you're making, I like to zest the fruit anyways so that you can save it for later. So what I'll do is I'll zest limes, lemons, grapefruit, orange. I'll put it in a little container and I'll throw it in the freezer and I'll add it to my soups, my stews, my muffins, my cakes, my cookies. Again, it gives like a nice oomph of flavor without added fat, salt, or sugar. Unhealthy fat, of course. Lime just goes really well with the corn and the pinto beans here. Okay, done. Now we're going to cut it in half. And if you have a reamer, use that. I like to just use my good old-fashioned hands. And sometimes a spoon. With lemons, you would maybe want to do this over something because the seeds, you don't want to get those in there. Yeah. And I generally do this at the very end because we want that vitamin C. We want to consume that vitamin C, and as I said, heat damages it. Great. Beautiful. Okay, give that a a stir. And we'll let that simmer. Oh my goodness, this looks beautiful. It's really nice with the black beans too. The black beans kind of give it a punch of color too. Okay, and then we're gonna add our salt at the end. I like to add the salt at the end. We used no sodium added tomatoes. We used no sodium added. So we are in control of our sodium. And this is about a half a teaspoon that I'm adding there. Great, and we're just gonna let that simmer. Clean our little station here. Get ready for the granola. Okay. So we're gonna let this simmer, and I'm gonna grab the granola. Okay, yum. Okay, beautiful. Great. So, see the dates. Oh, so good. Yum. Beautiful. Okay, cool. So I'll put this here. It's very hot. Tray hot. I always like to put my oven mitt in front of something that's hot to remind myself that it's hot, but others as well. Okay, so we've got our yogurt. So this yogurt it's actually a pea-based yogurt. Use whatever you're comfortable with, but always make sure that it's unsweetened, so no added sugar. And then add your own fruit. You see the ones that actually have fruit in it? Just add your own fruit. That way you know that it's unsweetened. Okay, cool. There, I'm gonna add peach. Peaches are in right now, and delicious. They're my absolute favorite. They remind me of my childhood. Get this out of the way here. Okay. Great, so peaches, generally what I'll do is I'll cut towards the pit, kind of a circle around, and then I just do a very gentle twist. And then I leave the skins on again, and then a nice dice. Thankfully I wiped my board off before, so I'm not tasting garlic in my peaches. You really want to make sure that your cutting boards are clean, especially if you're using any sort of meat. You want to make sure that you're swapping out your boards. Oftentimes at George Brown College, well, at George Brown College we have different colored boards for different types of animal proteins, making sure that we're not cross-contaminating. But again, making sure they're thoroughly cleaned in between use. And not kind of going between tasks. So if you're cutting like a chicken breast here, you're not then stirring over here, you're focusing on your chicken breast, finishing it, putting it aside in a safe place. You're not using it right away. Same with any sort of animal proteins near the bottom, because if they happen to spill, you don't want them spilling on your fresh produce. And then washing your hands thoroughly with soap and water before you move on to the next thing. Okay, great. Peaches. So we'll add that in. Yeah. Oh my goodness, guys. Okay, there we go, and a sprinkle of the granola on top. Beautiful. You can see that, isn't that nice? Yum, just put a lid on it, take it to go. Okay, we'll set that over there. Our matcha smoothie. Great, get these peaches out of the way here. I'll eat you later. Don't worry, there's nothing, no food waste that happens in my kitchen. Okay. So again, we'll clear some space here, and I'll plate the soup. Okay, so for the chowder, I've got a bowl here, and it's paired with a nice crusty fermented sourdough. So this is a whole grain bread, and it goes really nice at the very end. When you get to the bottom of the bowl, you can sop it up with all that fiber rich goodness. Okay, great. So let's give this a stir. Beautiful. And then at the end of this, once everything is cooked, you want to take out a potato, make sure that it's cooked. We're almost there. You could add a ton of greens in here. You could add a ton of arugula, spinach, basil, whatever you have on hand. Again, it gives an oomph of flavor, and they're leafy greens as well. I'm going to grab some cilantro and a ladle, and we'll plate this. So cilantro is really, again, a nice addition to the flavor profile that we have happening here. Oh, I wish you could smell it. Yeah, just the cumin, the paprika, the garlic, the onions, everything smells so good. And we really were building flavor using whole plant-based foods without added unhealthy fats, salt, and sugar. Okay, so we'll get this underway. This is one of those dishes that is very easy on the eyes and very easy to plate. Again, you can make this ahead of time, put it in the freezer for a make-ahead meal. Beautiful. Bit of cilantro on top there, or a lot, depending on what you like. Great. Okay, and there you have it. So we have our creamy corn chowder. We have our matcha mint chocolate chip shake. And we have our pecan granola, which we paired with yogurt and some fresh peaches. There you have it. Easy peasy stuff you can make in advance, and that is going to set you up for success in terms of a healthy lifestyle for the busy week ahead. Of course, we absolutely have to taste test our creations. So the creamy corn chowder. Oh my goodness. Gotta get a piece of corn here. Yum. It smells so wonderful. Oh, so good. Really, the flavor profile. There's so many different levels and layers of flavor that we did to build that flavor. It's so yummy, creamy, a little bit of spicy. We added a little bit of cayenne. The garlic is coming through, the cumin, the paprika, and then the texture of the corn, and then the coriander actually adds a nice kind of oomph of flavor at the very end there. So yummy. And then of course, our parfait made with our granola. Oh, so good. The sweetness of the peach I already know I'm gonna love. Oh. So good. So again, unsweetened yogurt, fruit, seasonal fruit, you could use frozen as well. Adds that nice sweetness, and then the crunchy granola with the healthy fat in there with the pumpkin seeds and hemp seeds. So rich in fiber too. So nice. A great grab and go snack. And then our matcha mint chocolate chip shake. Oh my gosh, to wash it all down. So nice. Again, the mint coming through adds that oomph of flavor, and again, without added unnecessary, unhealthy fat, salt, and sugar. So there you have it. 3 easy recipes that you can make ahead to set yourself up for success. Bon appetit!